The wheat fields of New Haven stretched far beyond what the eye could see. Golden waves moved slowly under the light of an alien sun, and the wind carried the sweet smell of grain ready for harvest. It was a peaceful morning on this distant world, a planet that humans had made their home 300 years after leaving Earth. Kim Tae-ho stood at the edge of his farm and watched the twin moons fade into the morning sky. He was a tall man with gray hair and strong hands that had once held weapons but now held farming tools. 20 years ago, he had been an admiral in Earth's fleet. Now, he was just a farmer who grew wheat and raised his daughter alone. "Father, the shuttle is ready," a young voice called from behind him. Tae-ho turned and smiled at his daughter. Yoon Hana was 14 years old, with her mother's bright eyes and her father's stubborn spirit. She wore an old pilot cap that was too big for her head, and she was bouncing with excitement. "You remembered to check the fuel cells?" Tae-ho asked, as they walked toward the small cargo shuttle parked near their home. "3 times, Hana said proudly. "And I checked the navigation computer, the life support systems, and the emergency beacon. Just like you taught me." Tae-ho put his hand on her shoulder. His daughter wanted to be a starship pilot more than anything in the world. Every day after school, she would run to the shuttle and practice. She had already learned more about flying than most adults knew. They climbed into the shuttle together. Hana took the pilot seat, and her father sat beside her. Through the window, they could see the colony city in the distance. 3 million people lived on New Haven. There were schools and hospitals, markets and parks. Children played in the streets while their parents worked. It was a good life, a simple life, far from the problems of Earth. "Take us up slowly," Tae-ho said. Hana's small hands moved across the controls with confidence. The shuttle lifted off the ground and rose into the clear blue sky. Below them, the farmlands became a patchwork of colors, and the city looked like a toy model. "Higher, father?" Hana asked. "Higher," he agreed. They flew above the clouds, and the curve of the planet became visible. Hana laughed with pure joy. This was her dream, to fly among the stars, to explore new worlds. Tae-ho watched her and felt his heart grow warm. After his wife died, Hana had become his whole world. Far away, in the colony's communication center, a young woman named Lee Sora was drinking her morning coffee. She was 23 years old, with tired eyes and messy hair. Working the night shift was boring work. Nothing ever happened on New Haven. No pirates, no threats, no trouble. Just quiet space and routine signals. She was about to leave when her computer made an unusual sound. Sora frowned and looked at the screen. There were signals coming from the outer edge of the star system. Strange signals. She ran a scan and felt her blood turn cold. Ships, hundreds of ships. They were dropping out of faster-than-light travel and heading straight for New Haven. Sora tried to send a message to the unknown fleet. "Unidentified vessels. This is New Haven Colony. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose." There was no reply. She tried again. "Unidentified vessels. We are a peaceful, human settlement. Please respond." Silence. Sora's hands were shaking as she activated the emergency alarm. The sound rang across the entire colony, waking people from their sleep and stopping workers in their tracks. Colony Administrator Park Sung rushed into the communication center, his face filled with worry. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, we have incoming vessels. Hundreds of them. They are not responding to any messages." Sora's voice was trembling. "Their weapons are charging." Park Sung was a calm man. He had handled many problems during his time as administrator, but nothing had prepared him for this. He looked at the screen and saw the fleet getting closer. These were not human ships. They were Vakari warships. The Vakari Dominion was an ancient civilization that had ruled a large part of the galaxy for thousands of years. Humans had heard stories about them, whispers from other alien species. The Vakari did not negotiate. They did not make friends. They simply destroyed anyone they saw as a threat. Begin evacuation, Park Sung ordered, though he knew it was already too late. Get as many people to the emergency shuttles as possible. Across the colony, sirens screamed. Parents grabbed their children. Workers ran from their offices. Panic spread like wildfire through the streets. In the sky above, Taeho heard the emergency broadcast on his shuttle radio. His face became pale as he listened to the words. All citizens. This is not a drill. Enemy fleet approaching. Proceed to evacuation points immediately. Father, what is happening? Hana asked, her voice small and scared. Taeho took the controls from her. Hold on tight, he said, and he pushed the shuttle into a steep dive toward the ground. They landed near their home just as the first explosions lit up the sky. Taeho looked up and saw fire falling from the heavens. The Vakari fleet had reached orbit, and they had started bombing the colony without any warning, without any demands, without any mercy. The colony's defense systems tried to fight back. Small missiles flew up toward the enemy ships. Laser cannons fired bright beams of light, but it was like throwing stones at a mountain. The Vakari were too many, too powerful, too prepared. Buildings exploded, streets cracked open. The screams of millions filled the air. Taeho grabbed Hana's hand and ran. The evacuation shuttles are at the spaceport, he shouted over the noise of destruction. We have to get there. They ran through streets filled with smoke and fire. Bodies lay on the ground. Families cried over their dead. The beautiful colony that had taken generations to build was being destroyed in minutes. Hana stumbled and fell. Her pilot cap flew off her head. Taeho picked her up and kept running. He could see the spaceport ahead. 3 large evacuation shuttles were filling with people. Soldiers were trying to hold back the crowd, trying to keep order in the middle of chaos. A massive explosion threw them to the ground. Taeho covered Hana with his body as debris rained down around them. When he looked up, he saw that 2 of the 3 shuttles had been destroyed. Only one remained, and it was already starting to take off. No, Taeho screamed. He tried to stand, to run, to reach the shuttle, but his leg was broken, and the ship was rising too fast. Commander Yoon Sumi was on that shuttle. She was Hana's aunt, and she was pressed against the window, watching in horror as the colony burned below. She saw the fire spreading toward where her brother and niece had fallen. She screamed their names, but no one could hear her. We have to go back, she shouted at the pilot. We cannot, the pilot replied, tears streaming down his face. There is nowhere to land. It is all fire down there. Taeho held his daughter close as the flames came toward them. Hana was crying, and he stroked her hair gently. I am here, he whispered. Father is here. Do not be afraid. I wanted to fly, Father, Hana sobbed. I wanted to see the stars. Taeho kissed her forehead. You will, my sweet girl. You will fly higher than anyone. The fire reached them. The last thing Kim Taeho saw was his daughter's face. The last thing he felt was her small hand holding his. The evacuation shuttle carrying 847 survivors jumped to faster-than-light speed, just as New Haven's capital city was completely destroyed. Behind them, the Vakari fleet continued their work. They bombed every building, every farm, every road. They made sure that nothing was left alive. In 12 minutes, 3,200,000 human beings died. Families were burned together. Children died in their beds. Doctors died, trying to save their patients. Teachers died protecting their students. The Vakari did not take prisoners. They did not ask questions. They did not even bother to learn the names of the people they killed. When they finished, they simply turned their ships around and left. To them, this was not war. It was cleaning, removing a problem before it could grow. They had done this many times before to many other species, but they had never done it to humans. And they did not know that humans never forget, humans never forgive, and humans always, always answer. In the cold silence of space, The lone shuttle carrying the survivors of New Haven flew toward Earth, carrying with it a message that would change the galaxy forever. The message was simple. They killed our children. And Earth would answer. The damaged shuttle entered Earth's solar system 3 days after the attack. It limped through space with broken engines and failing life support. The 847 people inside had barely enough air to breathe and barely enough hope to keep breathing. Commander Yoon Soo-mi had not slept since leaving New Haven. She sat in the corner of the crowded shuttle, holding a small pilot cap that had belonged to her niece. She had found it near the shuttle door, blown in by the wind just before they took off. It was the only thing left of Hana. The only thing left of her brother, Taeho. When Earth's rescue ships finally reached them, the survivors did not cheer. They did not cry. They simply stared with empty eyes at the soldiers who came to help them. They had seen too much. They had lost too much. The news of New Haven's destruction spread across Earth within hours. Every screen, every radio, every device showed the same images. The footage had been saved by New Haven's satellites before they were destroyed. People watched in silence as the beautiful colony burned. They watched families running through fire. They watched children dying in the streets. Billions of people across Earth stopped what they were doing. Factories went quiet. Schools closed. Streets emptied. The whole planet fell into a terrible silence, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. In Geneva, the United Earth government held an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in the Great Council Hall, their faces gray with shock and anger. President Kang Eun-bi sat at the head of the table. She was a small woman with kind eyes, known throughout the galaxy for her wisdom and her desire for peace. She had spent her entire career building bridges between humans and alien species. Now, she had to decide what to do about a species that had burned 3 million of her people alive. Admiral Choi Dae-won stood before the council. He was a large man with a face carved from stone, the supreme commander of Earth's combined fleet. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. But he had never felt rage like this before. The Vakari gave no warning, he said, his voice steady but cold. They made no demands. They did not even answer our communications. They simply came and killed everyone they could find. A council member from Europe raised his hand. Perhaps we should try to negotiate. Perhaps this was a misunderstanding. Perhaps they thought we were a threat. Admiral Choi shook his head slowly. I wish that were true. But our intelligence tells us a different story. He pressed a button, and images appeared on the screens around the room. The Vakari have done this before. They have destroyed 17 different species over the past 2,000 years. Every time, the pattern is the same. They find a young civilization, they study it from a distance, and then they destroy it completely before it can grow strong enough to challenge them. The room went quiet. The council members looked at each other with fear in their eyes. They see us as insects. Admiral Choi continued. They believe we will grow into a threat someday. So they want to kill us now, while we are still weak. New Haven was not a mistake. It was a message. They are telling us that they are coming for all of us. President Kang closed her eyes. She thought of her own children, her grandchildren. She thought of the families on New Haven, who had simply wanted to live in peace. She thought of the little girl named Hana, who had wanted to fly. What are our options? She asked. We can surrender and hope they spare us, Admiral Choi replied. But history shows that the Vakari do not spare anyone. Or we can fight. Can we win? The Admiral was silent for a long moment. I do not know, he admitted. But I know that we cannot let them think they can kill our people without consequences. If we do nothing, they will come for Earth next, and then for our other colonies. They will hunt us until none of us remain. The debate lasted for hours. Some leaders wanted to beg for peace. Others wanted immediate war. Some wanted to hide and hope the Vakari forgot about them. President Kang listened to all of them, her face calm, but her heart breaking. That evening, she went to visit the survivors of New Haven. They had been taken to a special hospital in Geneva, where doctors were treating their wounds, and psychologists were trying to heal their minds. But some wounds cannot be healed with medicine. President Kang walked slowly through the hospital. She saw soldiers who had lost their arms and legs. She saw children who had lost their parents. She saw mothers who had lost their babies. And in every pair of eyes, she saw the same question. Why? Why did this happen to us? A small boy, maybe 6 years old, walked up to her. His face was covered in burns, and his left arm was wrapped in bandages. He looked up at the president with innocent eyes. "When is my mother coming?" he asked. "The doctors told me to wait, but she has been gone for a long time." President Kang knelt down in front of him. She took his small hand in hers. She tried to speak, but no words came out. What could she say? How could she tell this child that his mother was never coming back? Commander Yoon Soo-mi appeared beside them. She picked up the boy gently. "Come with me, little one," she said softly. "Let me tell you a story." As she carried him away, Soo-mi looked back at the president. Their eyes met, and no words were needed. The commander's face held no tears, only a cold, burning anger that would never fade. That night, President Kang called a secret meeting in her private office. Only 3 people were invited: Admiral Choi Dae-won, Commander Yoon Soo-mi, and a man named Dr. Baek Jin. Dr. Baek was a thin man with white hair and tired eyes. He led Earth's most classified military project, something called Project Helix. Very few people knew it existed, and even fewer knew what it could do. "Tell me about the Helix," President Kang said. Dr. Baek looked uncomfortable. "Madam President, the Helix was built as a last resort. It was never meant to be used. It was only meant to scare our enemies. Tell me what it does." Dr. Baek took a deep breath. "The Helix is a weapon that can be fired into a star. Once inside, it disrupts the star's core. Within hours, the star becomes unstable. Within days, it explodes." He paused. "Everything in that star system is destroyed. Planets, moons, stations, ships, everything." The room was silent. "You are talking about destroying an entire star system," Admiral Choi said slowly. "Yes. Everything within 10 light years would be affected by the explosion, but the main system would be completely gone. Nothing would survive." President Kang stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Geneva sparkled with lights. Families were having dinner. Children were doing homework. People were living their normal lives, not knowing how close death had come to all of them. "The Vicari home system," she said quietly. "How many of them live there?" 11 billion, Admiral Choi answered. "They have 2 inhabited planets. Their civilization is over 4,000 years old. Their cities, their history, their culture, everything is in that system. And they killed 3 million of our people without hesitation." Silence. Commander Yoon Soo-mi spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm, almost empty. "My brother spent 20 years serving Earth. He left the military to give his daughter a peaceful life. He taught her to fly. He told her she would see the stars." She paused. She was 14 years old. She died in her father's arms, while their world burned around them. President Kang turned to face them. Her eyes had changed. The kindness was still there, but beneath it was something else. Something cold and hard and terrible. "Can we reach their homeworld?" she asked. Admiral Choi nodded. "It will take 6 months, and we will lose many ships in the battle to get there. But yes, we can reach it." "And the Helix?" Dr. Baek swallowed hard. "It is ready, Madam President. It has always been ready." President Kang looked out the window one more time. She thought of the boy in the hospital, asking for his mother. She thought of Hana's pilot cap. She thought of 3 million names that would never be spoken again. "Then we answer," she said. "God forgive us." But we answer. Admiral Choi stood straight. I will prepare the fleet. Only volunteers. Everyone must understand what we are doing and why. And what are we doing, Admiral? The old soldier's eyes were hard as iron. We are teaching the galaxy that the cost of killing humans is too high to pay. We are making sure that no one ever does this again. President Kang nodded slowly. Make the preparations. Tell no one outside this room. We leave as soon as possible. As the others left, Commander Yoon Soo-mi stayed behind. She looked at the president with something like gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Do not thank me, President Kang replied. I am about to become the greatest killer in human history. There is no honor in what we are about to do. There is justice. The president shook her head. No, there is only pain. Theirs and ours. The only difference is that after this, they will never hurt anyone again. She walked to her desk and sat down heavily. The weight of what she had decided pressed down on her shoulders like a mountain. The next morning, the first volunteer ships began their journey to the dark edge of space. They carried weapons of unimaginable power. They carried soldiers ready to die. And they carried the memory of 3 million souls who deserved an answer. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the rules had changed forever. Humanity was no longer a young species trying to find its place among the stars. Humanity was now something else. Something that even the oldest civilizations would learn to fear. The Admiral had seen many things in war, but he had never seen a pacifist's eyes turn to ice. And he knew then that the Vakari had made the worst mistake in their 4,000 years of existence. They had given humanity a reason to stop being kind. The fleet left Earth in silence. 200 warships slipped away from the solar system without fanfare, without speeches, without crowds waving goodbye. The 50,000 men and women aboard them knew they might never return. The flagship was called the Vengeance of Soul. It was the largest warship humanity had ever built, carrying 5,000 crew members and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Admiral Choi Dae-won commanded it from a bridge that overlooked the endless darkness of space. 6 months. That was how long it would take to reach the Vakari home system. 6 months of traveling through the empty void between stars. 6 months to think about what they were going to do. Lieutenant Han Woo-jin was 25 years old and served as a weapons officer on the Vengeance. He sat at his station every day, checking systems that did not need checking, running tests that always came back the same. But he needed something to do. He needed to keep his hands busy so his mind would not wander to dark places. His older brother had lived on New Haven. He had been a teacher at the colony school. A kind man who loved children and believed that education could change the world. He had died in his classroom, trying to protect his students from the fire that fell from the sky. They had all died together. Every night, Woo-jin would go to his small room and watch holographic messages from his brother. Old messages, sent months or years ago, talking about nothing important. How the weather was nice, how the crops were growing, how he had met a girl he liked. Simple things. Happy things. For the first 3 months, Woo-jin cried every time he watched these messages. By month 4, he stopped crying. That scared him more than the tears ever had. He wondered if he was becoming empty inside, if the anger was eating away everything else that made him human. Chief Engineer Moon A-ra understood that feeling. She was the woman responsible for keeping the Helix weapon working during the long journey. It was stored in a special chamber deep inside the ship, surrounded by layers of protection and watched by cameras at all times. If anything went wrong with it, their entire mission would fail. A-ra was 40 years old and had worked with machines her whole life. She understood them better than she understood people. Machines were simple. They either worked or they did not. They did not lie. They did not betray. They did not kill children for no reason. 1 month into the journey, she discovered a problem. The containment system for the Helix was failing. Slowly, almost invisibly, but failing. If she did not fix it, the weapon would become unstable long before they reached their target. Ara worked for 72 hours without sleep. She drank coffee until her hands shook. She ran calculations until her eyes burned. And above her workstation, she kept a photograph from the news. It showed New Haven's skyline burning, smoke rising into an alien sky. Whenever she felt tired, she looked at that photograph and found the strength to keep going. On the 73rd hour, she fixed the problem. The containment system was stable. The weapon would work. She sent a message to Admiral Choi. "Helix is ready." Then she went to her room and slept for 20 hours. Not everyone on the ship was certain about their mission. Chaplain No Young had spent 30 years serving God and serving the soldiers who protected humanity. He had helped men and women find peace in the darkest moments of their lives. He had told them that there was meaning in suffering, that there was hope after death. But now, he was not sure what to tell anyone. Every day, he held services in the ship's small chapel. At the start of the journey, the room was full. They wanted to believe that what they were doing was right. They wanted someone to tell them that God was on their side. But as the weeks passed, fewer and fewer people came. The empty chairs stared at Chaplain No. Like accusations, he gave his sermons to half-filled rooms, then quarter-filled rooms, then just a handful of souls who still wanted to believe. One night, after a service where only 5 people showed up, he sat alone in the chapel and questioned everything. Was this mission just? Was it murder or justice? Would God forgive them for killing 11 billion beings, even if those beings had killed 3 million humans first? He had no answers. The silence of space offered him nothing. Then, a message arrived for him. It was from Earth. From the hospital where the New Haven survivors were being treated. A child had written it, a little girl named Park Ji-yun, who was only 7 years old. Her handwriting was messy, and her spelling was not perfect. But her words cut through all of the chaplain's doubts. "Dear Father No," the message read. "My teacher told me to write to someone on the ships. She said you are going to fight the star monsters who hurt us. I want to ask you a question. Why did God let the star monsters kill my mommy? I was a good girl. Mommy was a good person. She helped everyone. Why did God let them burn her?" Chaplain No read the message again and again. He tried to write a response, but every answer felt hollow. What could he say to a 7-year-old girl whose mother had been burned alive? What words could make that okay? He could not answer her question about God, but he could make sure that no other little girl would ever have to ask it again. The next day, his sermon was different. He did not talk about forgiveness. He did not talk about turning the other cheek. He talked about protecting the innocent. He talked about stopping evil. He talked about the price of peace. The chapel slowly began to fill again. Commander Yoon Soo-mi had requested a transfer to the Vengeance. She could have stayed on Earth, safe and protected, honored, as a survivor and a hero. Instead, she chose to fly with the fleet, to be there when the answer was delivered. She led a squadron of fighter pilots, training them every day in simulations that pushed them to their limits. They practiced attack runs and defensive formations. They learned to work together as one unit, to trust each other with their lives. In her flight suit, she carried a small pilot cap. It was too small for her head, meant for a 14-year-old girl who had dreamed of seeing the stars. Sometimes, when no one was watching, Sumi would take out the cap and hold it against her heart. She would whisper her niece's name, like a prayer. "Hana, I am coming. I am going to make them pay for what they did to you." 3 days before reaching the Vakari system, the long-range sensors picked up enemy ships. A massive fleet was moving to intercept them. 300 Vakari warships against 200 human vessels. Admiral Choi gathered his officers on the bridge. The holographic display showed the 2 fleets as clouds of dots, one blue and one red, slowly moving toward each other. "They know we are coming," the admiral said calmly. "They have sent everything they have to stop us." "We are outnumbered," one of his officers said. "Yes," The admiral nodded. But we only need one ship to break through. We only need the helix to reach their sun. He looked at the faces of his officers. They were scared, but they were determined. They had not traveled 6 months through the darkness, just to turn back now. Our mission is simple, Admiral Choi continued. We are going to hold them long enough for the vengeance to break through. Some of us will die. Many of us will die. But we will not stop. We will not surrender. We will not let them escape what they have done. He paused and looked out at the stars. Somewhere ahead, hidden by the vast distances of space, was a sun that would soon cease to exist. And around that sun were 2 worlds full of beings who thought they could kill humans without consequences. They made a mistake, the admiral said softly. They thought we were like the others. They thought we would run, or hide, or beg for mercy. They did not understand what we are. He turned back to his officers, his eyes burning with cold fire. We are humans. We build monuments to our dead. We remember names for 1,000 years. We cross galaxies to find the people who hurt our families. And we do not stop until justice is done. The officers saluted. No more words were needed. In the weapons bay, Lieutenant Han Woo-jin checked his systems one final time. His hands did not shake. His heart was steady. Somewhere in the back of his mind, his brother smiled at him. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Moon Ae-ra watched the helix weapon hum with contained power. It was ready. She was ready. In the chapel, Chaplain No Young prayed. Not for victory. Not for survival. He prayed for the souls of everyone who was about to die, human and Vakari alike. He prayed that somewhere, somehow, this violence would lead to peace. In her fighter cockpit, Commander Yoon Soo-mi touched the pilot cap one last time. Soon, Hana, she whispered. Very soon. And in the darkness ahead, the Vakari fleet waited. They were confident. They were powerful. They had destroyed 17 species before. They would destroy this one too. They did not know that humans had come to deliver a message. They did not know that this message would be written in fire and light. And they did not know that after today, the galaxy would never be the same. The final battle was about to begin. The Battle of the Void began at dawn, though there was no dawn in space. There were only stars and ships, and the silence before violence. Admiral Choi Dae-won stood on the bridge of the Vengeance of Seoul and watched the Vakari fleet approach. 300 enemy warships formed a wall of metal and fire between his fleet and their destination. Behind that wall, the Vakari sun burned bright, not knowing that its time was ending. All ships, forward. The admiral ordered. His voice was calm, like he was ordering lunch instead of the deaths of thousands. Hold nothing back. The human fleet surged forward. 200 ships against 300. It should have been an easy victory for the Vakari. They had better weapons, more experience, and numbers on their side. They had destroyed fleets before. This would be no different, but they had never fought humans. The first wave of human ships slammed into the Vakari line like a fist. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Ships on both sides died in seconds, their crews becoming nothing but dust and debris. The Vakari expected the humans to slow down, to form defensive positions, to fight carefully. Instead, the humans kept coming. They did not try to save themselves. They pushed forward, ramming their ships into enemy vessels when their weapons failed, sacrificing themselves to create holes in the Vakari line. Lieutenant Han Woo-jin fired his weapons without stopping. His station was hot from the constant use, and alarms beeped warnings that he ignored. Through his targeting screen, he could see Vakari ships exploding one after another. Each destroyed ship was a payment for his brother. Each death was a step closer to justice. Enemy vessel coming from above, his partner warned. I see it. Woo-jin adjusted his aim and fired. The Vakari ship exploded in a ball of orange light. That one was for the teachers. Away. I way. V curry. V curry. Away. V curry. V curry. Around him, the Vengeance shook with impacts. The Vicari were focusing their fire on the flagship, trying to destroy it before it could reach their sun. But the Vengeance was built strong, and its crew was stronger. Commander Yoon Soo-mi led her fighter squadron through the chaos of battle. Her small ship danced between enemy fire, impossible shots missing her by inches. She flew like she had nothing to lose, because she did not. Blue team, follow me, she ordered. We are going to clear a path for the Vengeance. Her squadron dove into a group of Vicari interceptors. The enemy pilots were skilled, but they fought to live. Soo-mi fought for something else. She fought for a little girl who never got to fly. One by one, the enemy ships fell before her. Her squadron took losses too. Good pilots died in explosions that lit up the void. But they kept fighting, kept clearing the path, kept pushing forward. Commander, you have an enemy on your tail, a pilot warned. Soo-mi looked at her screens and saw the Vicari ship closing in. It was faster than her, better armed than her. She could not outrun it, so she did not try. She cut her engines suddenly, spinning her fighter around to face the enemy. For a moment, both ships were flying straight at each other. The Vicari pilot had better weapons, but Soo-mi had something he did not have. She had nothing left to fear. She fired at the exact moment the enemy fired. Both shots hit their targets. The Vicari ship exploded completely. Soo-mi's ship lost its left wing and half its control systems, but it kept flying, barely. Commander, your ship is critically damaged, her computer announced. I know, she replied, pulling herself back toward the Vengeance. I just need to last a little longer. On the Vicari homeworld, the High Council watched the battle from their command center. They saw their fleet struggling against an enemy that should have been easy to defeat. They saw their ships dying at a rate they had never experienced before. Why do they not retreat? One council member asked. They are losing ships faster than us. Logic says they should run. One council member. One council member. One council member. Perhaps their leaders are fools, another replied. No. The eldest council member shook his head slowly. I have studied humans. They are not fools. They are something worse. What? They are grieving. The battle raged on. Human ships fell one after another, their crews dying in fire and vacuum. But for every human ship that died, 3 Vicari vessels went down with it. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to hurt. A massive explosion rocked the Vengeance. Part of the bridge collapsed, and Admiral Choi was thrown from his chair. When he opened his eyes, he was lying in debris, and blood was running down his face. Admiral! His officers rushed to help him. I am fine, he growled, pushing himself up. His left arm hung useless at his side, broken in multiple places, but his eyes still worked, and his voice still carried. Status report. 2. C. W. We have lost 140 ships, an officer replied, his voice shaking. The Vicari have lost 210. They are trying to regroup. Oh, and the path to their sun? Clear, Admiral. We broke through. Admiral Choi smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knew his death was close and did not care. Chief Engineer Moon, he spoke into his communicator. Prepare the helix. Deep in the ship, Aira heard the order. Her hands moved automatically, pressing buttons and pulling levers she had practiced with 1,000 times. The helix weapon hummed louder, gathering power, preparing to do what it was designed to do. Helix is ready for launch, she reported. Launch it. A single missile left the Vengeance. It was not very large, maybe the size of a small car. But inside it was technology that had taken humanity decades to develop, technology that could kill a star. The missile flew toward the Vicari sun. It passed the wreckage of destroyed ships. It dodged the last few enemy vessels that tried to stop it. It moved faster and faster. Drawn by the gravity of the star, it would soon destroy. In their command center, the Vakari High Council finally understood what was happening. They had studied the missile. They had analyzed its path. And they realized with horror where it was going. "They are attacking our sun," someone whispered. "That is impossible. No weapon can hurt a star. This weapon can." Panic spread through the council. They tried to send ships to intercept the missile. But it was too fast, too far ahead. They tried to call for surrender. But no one answered. Finally, one of them managed to send a message to the human flagship. It was a simple question, broadcast on all frequencies. "Why will you not negotiate?" Admiral Choi heard the message. He was dying now, his blood pooling on the floor of his broken bridge. But he had enough strength left to answer. "You did not ask New Haven that question." The missile reached the sun. It penetrated the outer layers of fire and dove deep into the core. For a moment, nothing happened. The star continued to burn, as it had for billions of years. Then it began to change. On the Vakari homeworld, people looked up at their sky and saw their sun flickering. The light shifted from warm yellow to angry red, to something that hurt to look at. Scientists screamed warnings that no one could hear. Governments tried to organize evacuations that could never happen in time. 11 billion beings watched their star die. Parents held their children. Lovers held each other. The old remembered their youth. The young wondered why they had no future. The sun swelled, growing larger and larger, eating the empty space around it. The closest planet was consumed in minutes. The homeworld had perhaps an hour left. In space, the battle had stopped. Both fleets floated in silence, watching the star transform. The Vakari ships no longer fought. Their crews had families down there. Children, friends, everything they had ever loved. Lieutenant Han Woo-jin looked at the dying sun and felt something he did not expect. He felt sad. Not for himself, not for his brother, but for all the beings down there who were about to die. They had not chosen this war. Their leaders had, but they would pay the price. He thought about his brother again, and he understood something new. His brother had been a teacher. He had loved children, all children, everywhere. He would not have wanted this. He would have wanted peace. But peace was not possible after New Haven. Some wounds are too deep to heal with words. On the Vengeance, Admiral Choi took his final breaths. His officers gathered around him, tears streaming down their faces. He had led them across the galaxy. He had given them victory. Now he was leaving them. "Tell them," he whispered, struggling to speak. "Tell them we remembered." His eyes closed, his chest stopped moving. Admiral Choi Day 1, the greatest military leader humanity had ever known, died as his greatest weapon finished its work. The Vakari star exploded. The light was so bright it could be seen from neighboring star systems. A wall of fire spread outward at impossible speed, consuming everything in its path. The homeworld vanished. The second planet vanished. The moons, the stations, the remaining ships, everything vanished. 4,000 years of Vakari civilization ended in a single flash. 11 billion lives became nothing but atoms scattered across the void. Cities that had stood for centuries became dust. History became legend. Legend became nothing. The surviving human ships jumped to faster than light speed just ahead of the explosion. They carried 34 vessels out of the original 200. They carried 10,000 survivors out of the original 50,000. They had lost so much. But they had done what they came to do. Behind them, where the Vakari home system had been, there was now only an expanding cloud of debris and a neutron star spinning alone in the darkness. The Vakari had studied 1,000 species. They had destroyed 17 civilizations. They had ruled their section of the galaxy with absolute power. They had never encountered a species that would burn down heaven to avenge its children. Now they never would. Commander Yoon Soo-mi sat in her damaged fighter, watching the light of the explosion fade. In her hands, she held a small pilot cap. "It is done, Hannah," she whispered. "They will never hurt anyone again." And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the souls of New Haven finally rested. 1 year had passed since the stars burned. The 34 surviving ships returned to Earth carrying 10,000 souls and the weight of 11 billion deaths. There were no celebrations when they arrived. No parades. No cheering crowds. The people of Earth knew what had been done in their name. They stood in silence as the damaged vessels limped into orbit. President Kang Eun-bi watched from her office window as the ships came home. Her hair had turned completely gray in the past year. Some called her the Iron Mother now. A leader strong enough to make impossible choices. Others called her the Destroyer. A monster who had killed more beings than anyone in human history. She was both. She was neither. She was simply a woman who had answered violence with violence and would carry that burden until she died. Admiral Choi Dae-won's body was brought home with full military honors. They buried him in Geneva, near the hospital where the New Haven survivors still lived. His tombstone was simple, carrying only his name, his dates, and his final words, "Tell them we remembered." Commander Yoon Soo-mi was promoted to admiral. She was the highest-ranking survivor of the battle, and the council wanted her to lead the fleet into the future. She accepted the role because someone had to, but she found no joy in it. Her office was simple. A desk, some chairs, a few screens showing fleet positions. But on that desk sat a small pilot cap, old and worn, that she never moved and never explained. Sometimes, late at night when no one was watching, she would pick up the cap and hold it. She would talk to it as if Hannah could hear her. "The galaxy is afraid of us now," she whispered one night. "No one attacks our colonies anymore. No one threatens our ships. They see what we did, and they stay away." She paused, tears falling silently. "Is that good, Hannah?" "I do not know. I do not know if your father would be proud or ashamed. I do not know if we did the right thing. I only know that you are gone, and I miss you every single day." The cap did not answer. It never did. Chaplain No Young left the military after returning to Earth. He had spent decades serving God and soldiers, but he could not do it anymore. The things he had seen, the things he had been part of, had changed something deep inside him. Instead of preaching, he opened an orphanage. It was a small building on the edge of Geneva. Nothing special to look at, but it became a home for children who had none. Many of them were survivors of New Haven, little ones whose parents had died in the fire from the sky. No Young taught them reading and writing. He taught them history and science. He taught them that humans were capable of both terrible darkness and incredible light. He did not hide the truth about what had happened. He believed the children deserved to know. "Did we do a bad thing?" a young girl asked him once. "We did a necessary thing," No Young answered carefully. "Whether it was good or bad, I cannot say. But the people who hurt your parents will never hurt anyone again. And maybe that means other children will be safe. But the children on their planets died too." No Young was silent for a long moment. "Yes, they did. And that is a tragedy beyond words. Violence always hurts the innocent, no matter which side it comes from. That is why we must work for peace, so that no more children have to suffer." The girl thought about this. Will there be peace? I hope so. But peace requires everyone to choose it. One side cannot make peace alone. Lieutenant Han Woojin, the young weapons officer who had destroyed so many enemy ships, retired from the military at age 26. He had earned medals and honors that most soldiers never received. He put them in a box and never looked at them again. Instead, he became a teacher. He taught history at a university in Seoul, specializing in the events leading up to and following the Vaikari War. His classes were always full. Students wanted to learn from someone who had been there. He told them the facts, the dates, the numbers, the strategies. But he also told them the things that were not in the textbooks. "When I fired those weapons," he said to his students one day, "I thought about my brother. He was a teacher. Like me. He died protecting his students. And I killed thousands of beings to avenge him." The classroom was silent. "I thought revenge would feel good. I thought it would fill the empty space inside me. But it did not. My brother is still dead. Those beings are dead. And I am here, trying to make sense of it all." A student raised her hand. "Do you regret what you did?" Woojin considered the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the Valkyrie gave us no choice. But I do not regret protecting humanity's future." Unquote. Woojin considered the question. If we had done nothing, they would have come for Earth next. Sometimes, there are no good choices. Only less bad ones. What would your brother think? Woojin smiled sadly. He would tell me to focus on the future instead of the past. He would tell me to teach children well, and hope that they build a better world than we did. And he would be right. President Kang addressed the galaxy 1 year after the battle. Her message was broadcast in 400 languages to every known civilization. Trillions of beings watched and listened as a small woman with tired eyes spoke words that would echo through history. "We did not want this," she began. "Humanity came to the stars seeking friends, not enemies. We explored with open hands and curious hearts. We believed that the universe was vast enough for all of us." She paused, her voice steady but heavy. "The Valkyrie chose differently. They saw us as insects to be crushed. They murdered 3 million of our people without warning, without reason, without mercy. They burned our children alive while we begged them to talk to us." Her eyes hardened. "So we answered. We showed them the price of harming humanity. We destroyed their star, their worlds, their entire civilization. 11 billion lives ended because their leaders chose violence over peace." She let those words hang in the silence. "Let this be a lesson to every being watching. We do not want war. We do not seek conquest. But if you harm our people, we will not rest until justice is done. The cost will be absolute. There will be no negotiation, no surrender, no mercy." Her voice softened slightly. "We offer the universe 2 paths. The first is friendship, trade, cooperation, mutual respect. We will be the best allies you have ever known. The second path is enmity. Attack us, and we will answer. No matter how long it takes, no matter how far we must travel, we will remember, and we will come." She straightened her shoulders. "The choice is yours. Choose wisely." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, diplomats and generals gathered in hushed meetings to discuss what they had seen. Fear spread like cold water through civilizations that had once looked at humanity as primitive and weak. The Galactic Council, a gathering of the oldest and most powerful species in known space, requested a meeting with Earth. They had ignored humanity's calls for help before New Haven. They had watched the massacre happen and done nothing. President Kang made their ambassador wait 3 days before granting an audience. When the ambassador finally entered her office, he was nervous. He was a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, representing a species that had existed for 10,000 years. But in front of this small human woman, he felt like a child. "The Council extends its condolences for the tragedy at New Haven," he said carefully. "And we wish to discuss a new relationship between our civilizations." President Kang looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Where was your condolence when 3 million of my people were burning? Where was your help when we begged the galaxy to intervene?" The ambassador had no answer. "You watched," Kang continued. "You all watched. And you did nothing because you thought we were weak. You thought the Valkyrie would destroy us, and then it would be over. We were mistaken. Yes, you were." She stood and walked to the window. "We will work with the Council. Trade agreements, technology sharing, mutual defense pacts. We are not monsters. We want peace." She turned back to face him. "But remember this. We saved ourselves. When the galaxy abandoned us, we stood alone and won. We do not need you. You need us. Never forget that." The ambassador bowed and left. He reported to the council that humanity was willing to cooperate, but would never again trust anyone outside their own species completely. The council accepted this. They had no choice. 100 years passed. Humanity became one of the major powers of the galaxy. Human colonies spread across dozens of star systems. Human ships traveled everywhere, trading and exploring. Human ambassadors sat on the Galactic Council as equals, and no one ever attacked a human settlement again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some species learned it from history books. Others learned it from elderly beings who remembered the flash of light when the Vicari star died. But they all learned humans were not to be touched. In a small house on Earth, an old woman sat with her great-granddaughter. The child was 7 years old, curious and full of questions. The old woman had lived a very long life, long enough to see humanity rise from tragedy to triumph. "Grandmother Sumi," the little girl asked, "why do the aliens never attack us? My teacher says everyone is afraid of humans, but you are not scary." Admiral Yoon Sumi, retired for 60 years, smiled gently. Her hands were wrinkled now, her hair completely white, but her eyes still held a spark of the warrior she had once been. "We are not scary," she agreed. "We are kind and curious and full of love, but we are also something else." "What?" Sumi reached into a drawer and pulled out an ancient pilot cap. It was faded and worn, handled so many times over so many years that the fabric was soft as silk. She held it carefully, like it was the most precious thing in the universe. "What is that, grandmother?" "This belonged to my niece, Hana. She wanted to be a pilot. She wanted to fly among the stars. What happened to her? Bad people came and hurt her. They hurt many, many people. People I loved very much." The little girl's eyes widened. "What did you do?" Sumi looked at the cap, remembering fire and silence and the weight of choices made long ago. "We made sure no one would ever hurt our people again." "How?" The old woman put the cap back in the drawer. She picked up her great-granddaughter and held her close. "Because, little one, the universe learned what happens when you harm our family. We do not just remember. We answer." Outside the window, the sun was setting over a peaceful world. Children played in the streets. Life went on as it always had, safe and protected by the memory of those who had sacrificed everything. And somewhere in the endless darkness between stars, the debris of the Vicari home system drifted in silence, a monument to a lesson the galaxy would never forget. Humanity remembers. Humanity answers. Forever.